Hi, welcome
Clap.
to. Oh, yep. Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 41, or as I like to say, episode 40 fun of the Extreme.
You know what? I'm so glad that I decided to let you do this. This is funny.
Yeah,
Right.
I did that because of the funny.
So, yeah, as he said, episode 40 fun of the Extreme Hardware Podcast. This is already going so well. That was
Wait, this isn't overclock.net?
get out of here.
We're not allowed to talk about that anymore. I don't know. We are not. Who cares?
Yeah.
So anyway, today we're joined with most of the usual hosts. We've got our lovely new intro host individual, Chris.
Yeah, that's
We've
me.
also got our lovely editor, Jack.
Yo.
And we've got Mr. Axifer.
If he were a furry, he would be Axifurry.
And this is Simmons. All right, moving on. Oh, wow, I just choked on my spit. That's fun.
Yeah,
All right, so getting right into it. The big news this week is obviously Ryzen 5000, because we knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Gamers are really upset because of a naming scheme. Go figure.
No. Gamers are really happy about it. So basically, Reddit is full of a bunch of dorks and idiots who got really upset, like, very consistently about how, like, why are there Zen Plus CPUs? Why are there Zen Plus Ryzen 3000 APUs and Zen 2 Ryzen 3000 CPUs? Basically, the APU architecture was lagging behind by one. And, like, nobody cares. Because, like, the people who actually understand what's going on realize that, oh, it's just an arbitrary name. And the people who aren't, like, terminally online and just building their lives around a stupid semiconductor company are going to realize that, oh, it's the new AMD chip. Neat.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, who's looking for performance is going to be buying an APU anyway, and they have G's at the end of them anyway, so it's pretty obvious which ones are APUs and not.
Yeah, I mean, like, the only reason it was an issue with Ryzen 3000 was because they were just vastly different enough. Like 2000, it didn't matter. Like, oh wow, Zen versus Zen Plus, and the Zen core was the APU, which means they fixed a few bugs that were in the CPU variant. Raven Ridge fixed a few issues that were in Summit Ridge. Anyway, it literally does not matter. So that's just a thing now. That's why they skipped the 4000 series. Gamers rejoice. I don't care.
So
it's completely meaningless.
So real quick, this one is this die shrink or is this die
new
revision?
Arch? This is a new Arch.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Zen 3. It is a new architecture. They tweaked it a bunch. I don't remember the details. The takeaway is 20% faster IPCs across the board. They're using the updated 7 nanometer process that was used with the XT chips, so it clocks a bit better. Still doesn't hit 5 gigahertz out of the box, which is very funny.
The thing you forgot there was unified level 3 cache. That's like
I was getting there. No, that's not unified level 3 cache.
No,
it is an 8-core CCX, which means now 8 cores share cache. So the 12 and 16 core chips, they don't have unified L3 still, as far as I know. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the big one. I think, like, lightly threaded workloads are going to benefit quite a bit just because the cache that each core has access to is now doubled. Heavily threaded workloads, probably not as much, but yeah, that's just a thing now. The
IO die is the same exact thing, so they're saving money there, which kind of goes against the price increase. But using the same IO die means a lot of existing software is just continue to work. And with chipsets are just going to keep supporting it, no problem. Right. There should be less stability issues on launch than previous.
Yes.
Do keep in mind, though, like, the price isn't because of how much it costs to produce. The price is the price because that's how much they can sell it for. Like, I'm trying to think how to put it. It doesn't really matter that you're getting a recycled IO die, right? Like, it God, I don't know. My brain's fried.
Yeah.
I mean,
also not getting any boxed coolers with most of the models too. So
that's annoying, and they're still increasing the price, even though you're getting less. They claimed that it's because they would have to reduce the clock speed to like make the coolers work, because otherwise they would run too hot, which, okay, sure, but now you're expecting your customers to buy a bigger aftermarket cooler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Well, if I think of the target audience for something like the 5900X or the 5950 that Jack posted an image of, the target audience
like nobody is going to be using the stock cooler when they're spending that much money. Like, correct. I get it, but
it looks like the 5600X is the only one that has one.
Yeah, which is also the only 65 watt part too.
Yeah. Right. It's also, it's cheap. It's mainstream.
So that's another thing I thought was interesting with that 5950X. The max boost clock is 4.9 gigahertz on one core. I'm curious to see if that will scale up beyond 4.9 gigahertz with how they have their boost algorithm configured. Because
that's the max now. They've upgraded their branding now. So before they used to say the boost clock, and then you could expect the 250 megahertz on top of that as PBO2 if the board supported it. Now they're just advertising the max boost with PBO2, expecting the user to have better cooling.
Yeah.
But the base clocks have gone up generation over generation, which is nice, except for the 5950X, where the base clock is actually lower than the rest at only 3.4.
But that also doesn't surprise me, because with the density, I can imagine that they want to allow it to be a higher base clock just from the get-go. I don't know.
So, assuming you're using a 240 mil AIO at the minimum, or like a good solid double stack, double 120 mil air cooler, you're going to hit those mass boost clocks pretty much no problem on workloads that are less than an hour long.
Yeah. And honestly, what I find interesting is still the max TDP, even though TDP is such a garbage number, and we've acknowledged that numerous times. But they're only reading it at 100.
A great number. Idiots just misinterpret it.
Correct. But they're advertising at 105 watts, which I believe is lower than this generation. So
105 is the same. 3000 series was the same.
Yeah, 105's been standard since Ryzen 2000.
Nope, my 2600X is only 95 watt. And then the 3600X bumped it up to 105.
Yeah.
And then now the 5600X is down to 65.
Maybe I'm just comparing off of Intel because I just bought Intel for my tiny computer recently. So Well, I mean, yeah, but we've had this conversation, and I don't feel like expanding on it in the main episode. So I think this is really interesting, and if we do truly see this 19% TDP or IPC uplift, this is going to be a really solid chip. So,
well, keep in mind that that's average across a lot of different kinds of workloads.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things, though. It's like it's showing the generational improvements. When Zen 1 first came out, the IPCs was nowhere close to what anybody wanted it to be next to Intel, but
it was about Haswell tier. Like it was pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Like it was worth buying.
Yeah, it was fine, but it wasn't spectacular, is what I'm saying. But the fact that they are still maintaining this IPC uplift per generation is really good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the overclocking scene does, because with the current generation Zen 2, it doesn't overclock well at all. Basically, the chips are already at their limit until you start putting...
that's kind of an AMD thing to do. I don't think any Zen chip is actually like clocked very well.
Well, the best you could get is you can get better all-core clocks closer to their max, but with lots of voltage and lots of power. So what never was really worth it. It was like 30% power increase for like a 3% gain.
Right. Yeah, at that point, that's not worth it.
So I do look forward to seeing what happens with this generation if we're still at that upper limit with the chip that's being sold.
Yeah,
I would assume so.
I'm probably going to end up upgrading to a 5900X. Jack had convinced me to get Comet Lake, but since I'm putting some stuff on the back burner, was looking at Rocket Lake anyway, which is now delayed until March because Intel had some issues with USB in the chipset, so the entire platform is getting delayed. Very annoying. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably just get Ryzen 5000. Like, it's realistically, it's going to be a wash as far as like gaming goes, but we know how Sunny Cove is, so I don't see Rocket Lake really being surprising.
Right.
Also, it's going to run a hell of a lot cooler because Rocket is supposed to hit 5.5 gigahertz because 14 nanometer is just that refined now, which is great. It's just, why don't they have way too much, I'm sure. But I'm just kind of sad that we're still like on 14 nanometer.
They have to call it something else. It's not 14 nanometer. I mean, it's 14 nanometer, the marketing name.
It's 14 nanometer plus. Well, I mean, in that case, I know. But it's more like, I get what you're saying, but also it is fundamentally the same process. It's just been refined more and more and more.
Yeah.
So Chris, would you mind expanding on that USB bug? Because I'm actually not up to date on that.
Yeah, I have no idea what the details are. I just saw a tweet about it, and that's why it's getting delayed, because it was supposed to come out end of January.
Well, weren't they trying to push out USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 on that chipset?
Really?
I just work here.
Same, really.
If I'm not mistaken, I thought they were trying to push for a pretty big platform upgrade to PCI Gen 4, USB 4, Thunderbolt 4.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're doing USB 4, but yeah, PCIe 4 is a thing. They're also apparently doing 20 lanes off the CPU, and I'm not quite clear on what that means because if you look through some of the documents, DMI, the chipset link, is actually a PCI Express by 4 link with some bonus patentable things that they have on it. So like they can basically lock out NVIDIA from making Enforce chipsets, I guess.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, because Enforce was not very good.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, no, like I don't really know what's going on other than apparently there's a bug. God, I hope they don't do USB 4. Dude, it's going to be a nightmare. Like USB-C is already a nightmare.
Yeah. I don't think it's mature enough yet. We need...
No, the problem isn't maturity. The problem is nobody follows the damn standard.
That's true.
Yeah, you have USB 2.0 versus 3.0, and it's not clear on which cables support what once you've taken it out of the packaging.
I'm not even talking about
and the size of the connector isn't even tight all the time. You get super loose connectors, and they were using it for things like hard drive docks that you don't want a loose connector on, or one that can easily come out. Yeah,
you're just talking about protocol stuff, right?
Protocol, the physical connector, everything.
Well, I mean, Uni was
cable quality.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that too, especially because now it's carrying a PCI Express link. Oh, god damn it, we're doing this. Okay, that's fine. No, it is going to be a nightmare. USB 4 is just going to be a nightmare.
Unless they tighten up the whole specs for it.
USB peaked when USB 2.0 came out, and we had the big old printer cable, the classic Type B port. I like USB Type B. It's nice and big and durable.
Yep.
See, and even when we got into the USB 3.0 variants, the USB Type B 3.0 was so much better than all of the other USB 3.0 connectors.
Oh yeah, it was. Actually a snug fit.
Dude, that thing was great because it just added a bunch of pins on top, so you could still use the existing Type B cables. And
actually, do you know what was the most infuriating cable out of that entire mix was the Micro 3, which was on my dad's Galaxy S5. That was the most ridiculous.
Well, yeah, because they had no place to add the pins, so they just had to make this block off to the side.
And it was even more fragile than regular micro already was.
Yeah, it's not very good. I've got an external hard drive that's using it, and honestly, it's big enough that why didn't they just do Type B?
Yep.
Seriously, big connectors are great. They're dumb and they're not nearly as fragile, and I love them.
I'm waiting for USB 4.0 revisions of Type B, and it's just going to look like a DB15 cable.
No, I mean, it's just USB-C at this point. Like, I guess manufacturing is at the point that, yeah, we're just doing this now. Okay, cool. Thanks.
All they need is USB-C cable that has a little locking mechanism like a DisplayPort cable.
Yeah. But you know what the worst part? The worst part about, oh, dude, yes, I'd love that. Dude, I still use DVI, just in part because of the screws on the side. No, like, part of the problem with USB-C is that it has come out in an age where, like, we don't really have brands anymore. We just have Chinese wholesalers on Amazon, and they're in a race to the bottom to sell the shittiest possible thing to Americans who are willing to buy them. And that's why you have things like the USB-C cable that I got last year. It claimed to support 3 amp charging. I plugged it into an ammeter that I had, 400 milliamps. That was all it could do. There was a warning on the box that it might overheat. Like, this is the cheapest possible garbage, and it's what most people are buying.
Yeah.
Because it's the cheapest thing, but it doesn't implement the standards properly at all. Like, it can't even do power delivery properly. That's just using the right wire gauge.
And you know what? I want to build on that as well, especially with USB-C, because now that I've finally replaced my S8, I'm required to have one of those god awful splitter charger headphone splitters.
Oh yeah.
Oh Lord.
And basically, I had to spend about 2 days trying to find one that was actually rated for the full charge rate, because the first one that I got I needed it just in a pinch with the new phone, and it was only capable of, I think, 500 milliamp charge.
Yeah, that's the baseline USB spec there.
And so I'm looking forward to seeing if this one that claims to be rated for the full charge rate that just arrived in the mail today actually will do that. It's so frustrating.
So. Yeah, they're supposed to have like a pin that gets shorted to ground that indicates like, hello, I can support 3 amps, but I don't think anybody consistently does that, even when the wires are thick enough. Like, no, again, USB-C is a complete nightmare.
It is. Yeah.
A lot of these issues
look at the
should
Nintendo Switch.
Well,
to be fair, the Switch came out before USB power delivery was finalized.
Yeah, but the fact that they still used the USB-C connector, though, with a different thing when USB-C was still in draft. It's like the whole Wi-Fi draft N when that was still a thing.
Yeah.
And then actual wireless N routers came out and wouldn't run with those older devices or vice versa.
That's valid. At least in the case of the Switch Lite and the updated Switch model do properly implement USB PD. And in addition, I don't think the Switch is incompatible with USB PD in a way that will damage anything. It just won't like rot or charge as quickly as it could.
Right.
But the main issue was that you couldn't run the docks off a non-Nintendo USB-C power charger.
Correct.
Without frying the docks or the chargers because it was trying to pull weird voltages.
Yep.
But you could still run it in portable mode. Switches, you could still run them off any USB-C charger or power bank, no problem. Is when you wanted to enable docked mode to like a USB-C to HDMI separate connector, a non-Nintendo one. That's where the issues came in.
That's a different thing because USB-C supports so friggin' many different voltages. It's like 5 to 20 volts and a bunch in the middle. If I remember correctly, I downloaded a white paper to look through it at one point. If I remember correctly, it can actually do any voltage between 5 and 20 in steps of like 100 millivolts or something. Like, there's an insane amount of resolution here, and honestly, why? Right?
They want to make a universal thing that could support any device, right?
I mean, sure, that's great and all, but now you have to have every device fully implement the spec for it to work. And that's just not going to happen. We're seeing it not happen.
I mean, hell, I remember watching the video where, it was when Gamers Access went to go tour one of those case manufacturing facilities. I can't remember which one. And they literally had to make a decision to not implement the full wiring spec due to high cost of implementation, high failure rate, because it has everything has to be manually soldered on those connectors.
Oh, seriously? I mean, that's something that's going to change as manufacturing improves, I'm sure. But
it's still one of those things. It's like the front panel USB-C. They cannot guarantee the full USB 3.0 spec just due to high cost of implementation from the manufacturing standpoint. So
again, it's a nightmare. Like,
yeah,
I
think it would have been fine with just USB 2.0 plus PD for the USB-C connector. That would have been fine. Not used as this stupid high speed plus Thunderbolt plus power delivery plus all this stuff.
Part of the problem is that USB just became our de facto low voltage power supply standard, which is great because, as we saw in the European Union, hey, stop making your own unique, incompatible, goddamn 5-volt phone charger. So everybody just settled on mini USB and I think micro USB. Or maybe it was micro USB. Mini was phased out. I don't remember precisely. But regardless, they settled on USB. And that just became the power standard, but also the data standard because, we were getting smartphones by that point. It's just, that's kind of the problem. I think the fact that
USB-C itself should have never been chosen for the high data side. A USB Type A connector could easily handle the data plus the power for everything.
But the problem is we want our electronics to be thin and small, and who the hell is asking for that? It's like, the new MacBook came out. It's like, look, it's thinner than the one from like 2015. Like, look, it has USB-C. Look, guys, it's so futuristic. And it's like,
except it's only got 2 ports. You need to use one of those for charging and the other one for
and it's
a gigabit adapter.
And nobody is asking for this. Does anybody really care that they shaved off another millimeter from their phone?
Yes.
And now it's going to run hotter because the cooling sucks, and it's going to have a shorter battery life because you can't fit a proper battery in there.
Chris, you don't understand the potential that is gamer raging and just bending your laptop in half.
Oh, that does sound pretty cool.
Exactly.
You can do that with your iPhone by mistake. But yeah, it's like, I feel like this is one of those things where a bunch of focus groups concluded that, yes, this is what people want. When in reality, do they really? I don't believe it.
People don't know what they want.
Yeah.
That's why Apple needs to make all of our decisions for us now.
Because it's like, how do we know that X won't sell? Well, I don't know. You haven't made it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just garbage.
And if you ask the people, they're gonna kind of want what they already know exists, especially if you're just asking normies.
Especially because marketing says that thin and light is good when sure, okay, but also thick is not very thick these days. It's not like the days of lead acid battery powered Mac portables.
I would say if anything's the true demonstrator of that is the Galaxy Fold and the folding smartphone variants that we're seeing nowadays. Those are absolutely not thin phones. Yeah. And people still want them, even though they are not.
Well, because the folding's a novelty there.
Well, I'm not even going to say that. It's just, is it like if there's more functionality built into a thicker product, people will buy it.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody said, because, everybody has a case on their phones anyway. Because, my old BlackBerry, I dropped that thing on pavement regularly without a case, and it was fine.
Yep.
It was fine. It was user serviceable, and it was great. But you can't have that anymore because it has to be thin and light. And now, okay, well, I have to have a case to hold this in my hand. The phones are too thin to comfortably hold now. So I need a case to actually get grip. And hey, what if you just made a plastic housing for it that contained a larger battery? Because I'm sad.
It's understandable.
I have a question. Can you run folding at home on a folding phone?
You probably can.
Cool.
So, let's go ahead and move on to our next couple articles. I think we can get through them pretty quick because they're both just.
Is this about Big Navi? I don't care.
We have Big Navi and 37.
I'm getting more water snack.
I'm going to whip out my Big Navi.
So Big Navi, aka the AMD Radeon RX 6900 XT. The only thing worth of mentioning from this article is, first of all, it's going to come with GDDR6 memory.
Something about GDDR6. All right,
yep. And also, the die shot is being measured at about 536 square millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be about twice existing small Navi.
So, yeah. And that's really all we have confirmed about that. Moving on.
I mean, honestly, there's not much to talk about. It's supposed to be twice as fast. Well, yeah, I would hope so. Yeah. It's still not competing with NVIDIA's top tier chip because, of course, it's not. I don't know what else.
No, it's basically what like the whole 5700 versus 2060 was supposed to be. It was like they trade blows. In this case, 6900 with the 3080.
3080/2080 Ti. Yeah.
And no real power numbers. And the numbers were on the new Ryzen 5000 versus what we know about NVIDIA on Intel. So it's still not an apples to apples as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I'm just getting the first 16 gig ampere variant that comes out. Like, I'm not waiting on Radeon for anything good. The last time Radeon had a good release was the 290-290X. Mm-hmm. But that was it. Because when the 290 and 290X came out, they actually outperformed NVIDIA's top-end parts, including the Titan. Not by much, but they still did do it. They undercut them in price. They forced NVIDIA to release the 780 Ti and the Titan Black, and the 780 Ti kicks ass to this day. Mm-hmm. And after that, NVIDIA released Maxwell the following fall. AMD replied by doubling the VRAM on the 290, 290X, basically. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then they did Fiji, which was still outperformed by a 980 Ti and as expensive. And since it was using HBM, there was less VRAM, and you couldn't really cut the price because HBM's expensive. Polaris happened. Polaris got outperformed by the 390X. Vega happened. Vega barely outperformed the Fiji. Like, I think clock for clock performance, it was about identical. Meanwhile, NVIDIA is moving on to like the 1080 and the 1080 Ti. AMD can maybe compete with the 1080. AMD die shrinks Vega, and we get the Chatillon 7, except, again, Chatillon 7's way too damn expensive because it's back to 4 HBM stacks, and it's a pretty big 7nm die. Okay, cool. It's competing with the 2070, but that's 2 tiers below NVIDIA's top end, and it's $700, and AMD is definitely losing money on this.
Yep.
And then they come out with Navi, but like Polaris, it's not as fast as the best thing that AMD had made to that point. Like, the Chatillon 7 is still faster than Navi.
Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason...
It's been 7 years. 7 years since Hawaii came out.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, you still get arguments from people online that like AMD saying, well, Radeon doesn't need a top tier competitor card.
Yeah, they do.
I don't know why people say that.
I mean, strictly speaking, yeah, you can go for mass market stuff, but also Halo products give you brand recognition.
They do.
But then you look at the rest of it, and, well, NVIDIA's got much better hardware encoders. So you can actually.
So that's debatable. That's debatable.
Have you actually used AMD's hardware encoder?
He has. We were talking
I have
about
actually directly compared. Navi
hang on.
HEVC encoder
mode
than NVIDIA does.
I don't care. Shut up. I'm ranting.
You talk first, and then Axie, you could go on your thing because I know you have a thing probably.
Yeah. So better hardware encoders, I will claim, because I've had garbage experience with the hardware encoder on Polaris. What else? What else did I have there? Oh, you're talking about Navi, dude. I'm talking about Polaris. If you're talking about Navi, that's like the most recent generation. Because whatever, it's fine. We've got crappy drivers because AMD's just still not very good at that. We've got stuff like RTX and PhysX and other things that NVIDIA offers. You've got CUDA. Like there's just so many things in terms of software that even if AMD wins in like rasterization versus rasterization performance, they're still not necessarily the better buy. Anyway, go on, Axie. Talk about hardware encoders. My Polaris one sucks, but okay.
Okay, so yes, Polaris, because I did have the 480, and the Polaris versus whatever all NVENC has ever had has always been way better at H.264, unless you amped up the bit rates to stupid amounts, which Polaris did still perform and get near lossless. But it was like at like 70 megabits per second, which was just stupid, but whatever. It was still better than Intel, at least. With Navi, though, they at 30 megabits at H.265, it blows NVIDIA out of the water. But streaming still needs H.264, so that's still the popular one. So yeah, NVIDIA still has that with broadcast and RTX voice and all that awesome software support and ray trace, whatever else.
Yeah, okay. So there
Navi definitely went for the mass market approach. I mean, I don't think AMD cares as much about the graphics division, considering their APUs are still pushing Vega cores up until the most current potential APUs that are coming out and the consoles. So I'm pretty sure AMD is banking on the fact that their discrete GPUs are so small of their market. They're basically pushing out enough to make a profit while putting most of their R&D into APUs, consoles, ODMs, and the technology so they can eventually release a good product.
Well, keep in mind, they've also got that new data center thing because they're being like NVIDIA and doing a kind of sort of divergent architecture for compute. I'm not sure what the status on that is because there was RDNA for gamers and I think CDNA for compute.
Yep. Yeah, CDNA.
Whatever. I haven't heard any details about that. Anyway, so Axie, what you're saying is AMD has better H.265 performance, but that doesn't matter because you're not going to be using that real time for like game streaming anyway, which means I don't care.
Local recording, though.
Yeah, local recording is the huge. If you want to, so like in my case, this kind of plays into my next thing is I actually just installed on my gaming rig. I've got my 5700 as my main gaming thing because I play at 1080p 144 and that plays all the games I want, Destiny 2, Warframe, everything else. And then a GTX 1050 Ti to use NVENC for the streaming side. So I can run the streaming on the NVENC and the recording on the AMF through the AMD card at near lossless with no performance hit to the game. And or from doing my Elgato capture card at 4K, they can both handle that no problem. And the driver issues, that's actually curious to bring that up because I have a beef right now with NVIDIA, is that AMD's never had a driver issue for me from Catalyst Control days to now. They've had some weird driver issues with multi-display support and Eyefinity before that got dropped. Yes, but those are edge cases. But right now, you cannot open NVIDIA control panel if you don't have a display connected to your GPU. I could use my GTX 1050 Ti for folding at home, for compute, for DaVinci Resolve, for capturing, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, you got to get one of those.
Open NVIDIA control panel.
You got to get one of those dummy plugs. They're not that expensive.
That is not something you should have to do to open a piece of software on your PC.
It's a workaround, but yeah, no, that is, I agree. I mean, even
like
then,
both sides have the driver issues. NVIDIA's not updated their driver software in forever. It works, but it's clunky. That the driver itself, the display driver, yes, NVIDIA's got a much more solid display driver, but the actual driver software, AMD's definitely got.
Yeah, NVIDIA's still rocking this like Windows XP era GUI. It's great.
Yeah, like AMD Link actually works. The AMD smartphone app that actually lets you connect to the Radeon Software Center, control it, and see all your stats actually works pretty great.
Why do I want my phone?
Their built-in recording and streaming actually works. Their hotkeys for all their stuff work. NVIDIA, you have to install the separate NVIDIA broadcast, which then it's slightly limited in how it interfaces with other. But then you have to rely on OBS's implementation of NVENC and all that stuff. Whereas AMD Relive actually does a good job internally, and it's all driver intertwined from AMD, so you know it's fully supported.
Does NVIDIA still put watermarks on all the things that they record?
Watermarks?
Yeah, they used to.
Never heard of that.
Point. Yeah, they did with Shadowplay at one point.
I don't know. I've been using Shadowplays for years.
Well, here's how we're gonna date this, and maybe it was just a default option that could be turned off. But either way, Total Biscuit was reviewing a game and was
he's just dumb.
Stuff. He's dead now, actually.
Yeah,
but just to put the time frame in perspective. Yeah, I guess that was a brand new feature, quote unquote, that they added in an update that he didn't realize was a thing. So he recorded gameplay for a video, and there was just an NVIDIA Shadowplay logo in the corner. And he pointed it out and said, "You know what I'm going to do?" And then put an AMD logo over the NVIDIA logo and said, "Don't do that again." And it was kind of funny. But yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't trust NVIDIA not to do that again. And also, you need an account to use their software suite is just garbage. You don't need an account for this. Why do you need an account? Why do you need an account to use this software? Is there server-side processing?
Ask Logitech.
Yeah. It's because of data mining, clearly, but it's bullshit. You can't buy a product and expect to use it without having something being mined and sold to advertisers being stored on somebody else's server. Internet connection required? I hope not.
My Logitech mouse, my G903, to be able to change the setting on it to save the profiles directly on the mouse instead of in software, you have to log into an account. Mm-hmm. But I was able to connect to a VM and just VMware free player, whatever, just a Windows 7 VM, install the software, change that setting. Then I could go back to my main OS that didn't have it logged in, the same G Pro software, and then I can make all the changes. But you need to be logged into the software just to change that one setting.
Flip the flag, yeah.
Then it was persistent.
It's garbage.
That makes no sense. But whatever. They're doing it, whatever they're doing.
It's just this kind of thing that makes me not want to do this. But that's just the way things are going. Don't even get me started on advertisements at gas pumps. I've
already got you going on that.
Well, it's just the kind of thing where it's that one, in my opinion, is the epitome of nothing is sacred anymore. Everything has to be data mined. Everything has to have ads in it. And it just sucks. I want a cooler dystopia than this.
What if you were actually informed? Let's say every month that account, the email associated with the account, let's just use NVIDIA as the example, they would tell you what the anonymized data was used for and what bugs were fixed using the telemetry data, what compatibilities were enhanced using the data. What if you were told the positive things every month in a newsletter?
Okay, sure, but they also need to disclose who they sold their stuff to and how their data is being stored and how likely it is that there will be a leak. Oh, Simmons died.
That's okay.
Yeah, his internet's not very good. There's all sorts of things to consider. It's just introducing holes into things that don't need to exist.
Or just don't let people opt in to the sending advanced analytics or analytics to the company if they want to.
Analytics.
I like that word.
Yeah.
How we pronounce it in Canada.
Yeah. Let's see. You have the following rights. Right to access. You could see what data they collected. You have right to take your data. You have right to erasure. So you have right to everything from NVIDIA. The types of data they collect is contact information, name, email, blah, blah, blah. So they could contact you or ship items, your birth date, geographic region, details on your device, network configuration, how your system is performing. So we could optimize hardware and software configurations, and crash jumps. They also get if your drivers crash.
Which that's kind of a really bad one to grab, because depending which crash jumps they're grabbing, that could have a bunch of other personal information in there.
Yeah. It could, yeah.
Like, again,
and how do they store that? Is that just stored on the NVIDIA servers where anyone work for NVIDIA can just access?
It's stored in plain text on an HTTP server on the public-facing web. I'm just saying words, but it's probably true. You know it, I know it, the whole world knows it. Nobody does good security.
Yeah, anyways, back to topic. I mean, we got Ryzen launching November 5th. We don't know when Ryzen. New 6000 is launching yet, because the actual thing is on October 28th or 29th or something, and NVIDIA is going to try to snipe that off. But I hope they do a better job than Intel did. And we'll see what they actually properly announce and launch dates for those as well. I probably won't pick one up. At this rate, it looks like I'm probably going NVIDIA once they're actually in stock.
Yep.
But we'll see. Yeah, so we kind of built on what I was talking about before. Using an AMD graphics card plus an NVIDIA card is still a valid multi-GPU setup for a gamer / streamer / content creator who only wants to have one computer running.
Mm-hmm.
Because who in this world can now afford a more than 2-bedroom home anymore, unless they live with their parents?
Right.
Yeah, I live with my parents.
But I mean, I remember the older, like I think like AMD 5750 days, like Crossfire and stuff, where the encode engines were basically super hampered if you were running any sort of 3D task. But we're at the point now where I can be running Folding at home plus playing a game with no performance hit, and if I fire up DaVinci Resolve to do a quick render, it'll take enough priority from Folding at home to still do the render, but Folding at home could still continue. Things kind of just work. Windows 10 game mode on the 2004 update actually works, and it actually improves the OBS's tie-in as well. Let both GPUs properly access the content and use the copy over the PCI, in this case PCI 4.0 bus, which I'm sure helps immensely on the AMD platform. Yeah, multi-GPU, it's still a thing, just not in the way that people want it to be.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, no, I mean, like, the days of multi-GPU giving you better frame rates in games are just over. Like, yeah, I know there's DirectX explicit multi-GPU. It's not going to take off.
Yeah, no developer does that. But, I mean, you're not getting more performance from running dual GPUs anymore, but you can minimize your performance hit by being able to do more things while
you're not getting performance, you're getting features, I guess. You're getting capabilities. Like, you're getting a more capable system. You can do things with it. It's kind of like the other thing. It's kind of like when people hacked NVIDIA drivers, so you could get a dedicated PhysX card with an AMD card.
Actually, that ties in perfect what I was about to say, is hacking NVIDIA drivers. This is exactly why I took the GTX 1050 out of my Plex server, is because the Plex, the Linux NVIDIA patch that allowed more than 2 NVEnc streams on a GeForce card doesn't work anymore with Plex transcoding. So if you have a single GeForce card, which is all most people are going to afford if they're building a Plex server, you can only have 2 hardware streams. And a GTX 1050 Ti can handle up to 4 1080p streams if you hack it. Now you can't. Whereas like my 5700 can handle 5 1080p streams with VRAM to spare for gaming, with no restrictions at the driver level.
So what's the problem with the hack? Why doesn't it work anymore?
NVIDIA did something with the driver and Plex and the new FFmpeg and how it accesses the newer features of the NVIDIA driver for the NV encoder and decoder, that the sessions just get limited and they start overwriting and they use too much VRAM per, and ends up being some memory mapping issues, and it's a mess unless you just go with the Quadro card.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh,
but it's annoying because the Quadro cards are the same performance, you're paying about 3 times the price.
Oh yeah, minimum.
Just to get those potentially that third or fourth stream.
Yeah.
That an AMD card that's arguably 20% cheaper, let's say, just as a rough number, can do that and then more when it comes to just encoding purposes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sucks.
Yeah. So it's definitely a weird landscape that NVIDIA is still enforcing that restriction on people with the NV encoder for no real purpose aside from trying to push the Quadro or Titan cards, which makes no sense to the people that want to do this.
Nobody's going to be buying those for that purpose. Speaking of Quadro, incidentally, NVIDIA is killing off that brand. They're now just calling it RTX.
Yeah.
But it's named differently. It's like the RTX A something or other.
Yeah.
Which is very silly, and I don't know why they're doing that. That's just going to make people.
I don't understand the mentality unless they're trying to go with like AMD's mentality that they went with naming their server chips Epic. Because our audience in terms of marketing.
No, the most comparable option is like AMD started calling Fire Pro what used to be Fire Pro, that is now Radeon Pro. But in AMD's case, nobody really knew what a Fire Pro was. Quadro actually has some amount of brand recognition behind it.
Right.
So I don't know why they would just get rid of that. Like, it's NVIDIA's second longest running brand. After
the Quadro, you knew that those were the chips that they weren't going to boost any higher. You weren't going to overclock them, but they were more reliable hardware. The drivers were a different set of drivers that were more reliable.
The drivers were also for they were for professional 3D applications. If you're using CAD stuff, odds are pretty good that it'll be running a hell of a lot faster on the shiny new Quadro than the shiny new GeForce.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much of that's artificial or not either, but
weren't the Fire Pros though? Weren't they some weird ones where they didn't have display outputs, and that was kind of?
There were some variants of them. It was like the Fire Pro S series, I think, but that was comparable to NVIDIA's Tesla brand, not to the generic Quadro.
That's right, but it was a good amount cheaper. But because they stripped those outputs off, that's kind of kept it out of the markets where it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And the Titan's different too. Like the Titan's going to be weird this generation if they do one or not, and how they decide to manage that.
So actually, speaking of the Titan, I mean, I think we briefly talked about this in our last recording because the Titan going away, or in terms of branding, I don't think it really matters too much. Because
when did they do that though?
This generation.
No, they didn't. When did NVIDIA say there isn't going to be a Titan? Yeah,
they just didn't launch one.
Because right now,
the 3090 is a 3080 Ti.
Right. Correct.
What?
The 3090 is a 3080 Ti. It's not a Titan.
Yeah, it's not that much faster. It's like enough to say that it's a different card, but not enough to justify the price.
My point is, it's using the bigger chip, but it is still ultimately a gamer card. It is still priced at that, low $1,000 range. Like
they could just get rid of the Quadro and have Titan replace the Quadro line.
So
I don't think that would work, honestly, because with Quadro, like we've already stated, it's an established branding for professional workspace.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you can't have a Quadro driver, because you always had the option to run different versions of the driver.
Yeah.
On GeForce cards, you could either run the
Studio or
the UDM driver or the regular driver, and they also had a productivity focus driver hidden in the fine print links and stuff that you could run on GeForce cards specifically for 3D application. You got some of those kind of optimizations from Quadro, but you lost a lot of gaming performance if you ran those.
I wonder. Because I'm not sure if NVIDIA would do it, but do you think that NVIDIA is going to sell the Ampere Titan? Because they're going to make an Ampere Titan. They're absolutely going to.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to sell it with 48 gigs of VRAM? Because they could do it. They could make a GDDR6 and increase the capacity and sell it as a deep learning card. But like cut out some features that are in the new Quadro replacements that they announced.
Oh, that's definitely a possibility if
because
Quadro is absolutely going away.
I mean that's what they've done. Oh no, actually, I'm sorry, I'm dumb. I forgot. The reason the Turing Titan was the way it was is because there was no TU100. There was only TU102. So the Titan RTX was more like the 2080 Ti than the big old data center card. Well, actually, what I think is going to happen is they are going to make a GA100 Titan. And it is going to be effectively the Ampere A100 Tesla for data center with some features stripped out, except it's a PCI Express card you plug into your computer instead of the fancy NVLink mezzanine card. That's what's going to happen. I completely forgot about them traditionally doing that.
Well, I just wanted to say something just to make sure. Like, okay, so GeForce Gaming, Titan AI, Quadro, CAD, and professional graphics. That's that's what they're lined up to be.
Tesla is compute. I'm not sure if you said Tesla or not, but Tesla
didn't say Tesla. No.
Yeah, Tesla that's also one of their microarchitectures, which is
So I wonder if Tesla or if the Quadro space will just get pushed into the Tesla space then.
Probably not, because the Teslas tend not to have, for instance, display outputs. Like they're workstation cards. They're not compute cards. Well, like there's always a little bit of overlap, but
no, I'm just trying to figure out where like, because with the Quadro, that one aspect of the Quadro where it is marketed as that super high end compute card for professional applications.
Quadro isn't really marketed as a compute card.
It's not high end. It's more just it's a slightly different optimized GeForce silicon, except with different drivers.
But like that kind of optimized silicon doesn't really exist in what we consider the RTX or the GT or the GeForce space.
Is it really optimized silicon? I don't believe that it is.
It's maybe not silicon, but the power and everything else. They might just do some slightly different binning for the memory and the power delivery.
I mean, absolutely. Like they are going to be emphasizing stability. I would assume that they are emphasizing stability rather than raw performance, but that doesn't mean it's different silicon.
So maybe they're at the point now where with the 20 series they realized that there was no real benefit to having the Quadro hardware over just GeForce hardware and just run a different driver or put a different ID on it. You have to install a productivity driver instead of the GeForce driver.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't just have.
So we might not see Quadro hardware anymore, but they might break it down to having instead a GeForce driver.
Well, they are
a Quadro driver.
They are making separate SKUs still, so it's not quite that.
I mean,
unfortunately.
So I have another thought. Then, do you think that maybe the future of what Quadro exists as, or used to exist as, with their specialty drivers, it's going to go into a space where it's all the exact same hardware? And then you just have to pay a licensing fee for a Quadro driver.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind that because that would simplify things. Although I think they would also need to do like different board designs because Quadros often have fun single slot coolers. That is why I own a Quadro 600. I bought it so I could rip off the cooler and stick it on a 750 Ti.
I'm also curious how many
Quadro, it still works.
How many Quadros were sold as discrete cards versus in laptops? Because I know for our work for engineering, we bought all of our Dells with Quadros, P2000s, P4000s, because it was better performance you could get in a desktop for a similar price. Because somehow that made sense.
Question. Yeah, it'd be like that.
So maybe discrete Quadros might go away, but maybe that'll still be in their mobile workstation lineup. I don't know.
Yeah, and then also going back to how I know some work environments use Quadros is they just used them as add-in compute cards or like rendering applications. So like you could go with something like a Tesla design where there is no display out and it's only intended to be an add-in compute card.
Oh, you know what else? Now that I think about it, don't Quadros also offer ECC?
I think so. Yeah.
I think though that the way they accomplish that is like purely software based. It's kind of weird, but it's like I don't want to say software based. I'm sorry, that's not accurate. But it's not like, for instance, DDR ECC memory, where it's an extra memory chip. It's just they stick some Hamming code in the existing frame buffer, and you get ECC that way, and it reduces the amount of memory that you can use. Which is, I guess that's another way to do it. It does indeed make an ECC device, but whatever.
Yeah, because doesn't like GDDR already just kind of ECC normally?
It does error correction during data transfers, I believe.
Yeah. And they just, I guess, just enable a more robust version for the professional cards.
Well, no, I mean, it's only getting error detected and corrected when it makes its way across the bus. It's not actually being detected and corrected while stored in memory, as far as I understand it. Okay. So, like, if a bit flips in flight, it's going to get detected. If, like, radiation hits a memory chip, like 10 seconds after you write the data, you're SOL. I could be wrong. I do not remember the details on.
That would make sense because it couldn't afford to waste that much VRAM on adding all the checksums to every piece of VRAM.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, I think the percentage of memory that gets dedicated to ECC is like, it's surprisingly small. I think the most recent NVIDIA architectures do like 1/32 of the memory. That's not quite as robust as traditional desktop PC type ECC, but
I mean, but given how the ECC typically performs, or does like a parity check on the data stored and then does a comparison against other data that it's putting in, it doesn't really need a whole lot.
Well, it's not even doing a parity check. It's just, I mean, I'm assuming you can all do this in like one circuit, but like ECC, go look up Hamming code. That was like the first ECC thing. It is, what is it? What's the YouTube channel? 3 Blue, 1 Brown, I think. Maybe it's
I think they did one recently in the last couple of months. Hamming code is pretty fun.
One explaining how this stuff works. But yeah, no, we actually talked about this in my discrete math class.
It's like a couple bit shifts
and you can ECC works. Not only does it tell you like, oh, there's an error, it also points you to exactly the address where the error is. Like, it's a very clever algorithm.
The more you use at once, the less bits you need, but the longer the check would take. So there's a balance between how much space you want to save versus how much performance you have to spare.
Yeah, I would assume that the reason, well, actually, I'm not sure how big it is for whatchamacallits, like DDR memory. Never mind, I'm dumb.
So, Jack, what did you find there about this NVIDIA A40?
I'm like going through NVIDIA's website trying to make heads or tails of this, which is maybe why they're changing a lot of branding, because it's confusing even on their own website. And I found, let's see, where did I find it here? Just on NVIDIA.com. Right at the bottom, it says data center to edge. Under that heading, there's a thing that says, I love edging. NVIDIA A40. And I was like, okay, so what does NVIDIA actually call this? And I'm reading through everything. It's okay, they're not calling it. They're saying data center. They say data center. And you keep scrolling down, and eventually they say, well, it has Quadro sync. But they're not calling it a Quadro card.
Oh, sorry, this is totally unrelated, but here's a funny tweet.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 2 had 3 Grand Theft Autos. Grand Theft Auto 5 has had 3 PlayStations.
Accurate.
So, is there any more that anybody wants to input about this topic? Because, this is actually a really fascinating thought piece, I think.
I'd have to look through all the SKUs, and I can't be bothered.
That's fair. No, because I feel like this is the fact that you made this joke is a really good transition to our next article.
PS5.
Yeah, so Sony actually is trying to appeal to gamers now. No, that was a bad joke. But no, they did a teardown video of the PS5.
Oh my god, this is such dorky nonsense. What? Okay, when did this happen precisely? Because I remember
4 days ago.
Well, no.
I know you.
Simmons, that's not what I mean. Let me finish a goddamn thought. So, like, when precisely did we get to the point where console gamers now care about how many teraflops are in their consoles? Because I remember when like the PS4 and the Xbone were revealed, like they kind of touched on some of these specs, but nobody really cared. It was all kind of in the periphery. But here it's like this is cut and center. We're using AMD Zen and we're using RDNA and we've got a PCI Express SSD and it's NVMe and it's just like all of these PC hardware specs and it's like
I think it basically was PS4 and Xbone because that's when you had the same games with the same engines running on PC and console. So that was the only real way to compare them, but it was still stupid because PCs have overhead, but also more powerful hardware. So those numbers mean next to nothing.
I think it was around PS4 Pro and the Xbox X is when this actually happened.
Oh, the 4K capable maybe?
Yeah, that sounds best. Yeah, because that's when they were talking about how like, look, it's got this many more teraflops than the old Xbox.
Yeah.
And it's just got all of these things. Because like
now you can reach 30 frames per second.
The main focus of the announcements for the last gen consoles, I just don't remember that much talk about computer-y bits. It was mainly focused on features. Like I know everybody riffed on the Xbone reveal for being like TV, sports, all this stuff instead of games.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, that's much more important to the end user experience than knowing what microarchitecture the CPU is using.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I remember
at
the
least for
Xbone.
a PC, you could open up Visual Studio and write a program or something. You can't do that on a console.
So my favorite thing about the Xbox One was the fact that PC Game was like, well, I guess we can just use the HDMI pass-through for TV usage just to run our PCs through it instead.
I mean, that's actually kind of cool.
It is.
Oh, I've got a HDMI pass-through on my old FM2 Plus motherboard. It's sitting on a test bench right now. I need to screw
really?
around with that. Yeah,
I didn't know they had that.
ASRock FM2A88X or something. I don't know.
Is it pass-through or does it act as like a capture?
It's weird. You need to install ASRock software, but it acts like a pass-through. However, it pops up in a window within Windows. I think it's only Windows 7 and 8.
So it's not even true.
But you could switch on OBS and then
so you could use it as a capture card. That's actually pretty awesome.
I think I need to look into it. You know, this would be something to talk about. This is infinitely more interesting than how many teraflops are in.
Well, that's not even what the PS5 article was about.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that.
Welcome to Extreme Hardware Podcasts.
The real big tidbit for this was liquid metal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like they're using a gallon stand thermal interface for the Zen 2. And
for the Zen 2.
Yes.
Well, I'll be damned.
Just like how you phrase that.
Just like the liquid metal.
So yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on gallon stand in your console?
Seems silly, but okay.
I mean, if it's helping them they got a pretty beefy cooler to begin with, but if that's what's getting them basically guaranteed performance after an 8-hour gaming session, I mean, great. Mm-hmm. They've put the foam dam around to keep it from moving. Depending on how you're oriented, it should last, but I think and I think a lot of users online are worried about the fact that liquid metal has a finite lifespan.
Right.
And it makes it very tough to remove. If it fully hardens or if it is ran hot for a long time, it could kind of shift a little bit and lose some of its efficiency.
Just lap the die.
That, along with a soldered SSD, the 825 gigs, I think, of internal,
correct,
kind of makes it hard for console longevity. Mm-hmm. Like with older consoles, like cartridge-based games and stuff, you had maybe 18 to 30 pins on the side of a chip. You could hand solder that no problem.
Yeah.
If you had a techie friend, they could fix it for you and you could save a few bucks. Now this is your main console, that's the built-in storage over the cost of an M.2 slot. I don't see how that was justified, except for maybe,
the only
that
thing
30 cents on 3 million consoles.
Here's the deal. I'm not really stoked on, them doing this, but I do recall during the Red Ring of Death days that there were kits that were made and sold to like remove and reseat the CPU on your Xbox 360.
Mm-hmm.
So like BGA soldering is not some esoteric thing that's impossible to do. I would not want to attempt this myself. I don't really have the skills to do that, but it's not like it's really infeasible to do if you have the skills and equipment. Like, it's fine. It sucks, but it's ultimately fine. I don't know. I'm not too fussed about it.
Yeah.
So, and then the last article that I think I want to touch on before we do our extras recording is
I have a thing to say about the PS5.
Sorry.
Jeez,
Go for it.
you guys are jerks.
Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Jeez,
I love you, buddy.
I love you too. And I've always been against the suppression of the Galenstanian people, and segregating them to the PS5 case seems like a human rights violation.
Yeah, okay, Jack. We're not getting political on this podcast.
Start a GoFundMe.
That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. And,
yeah, you're the editor. You can just say whatever the heck you want.
Yeah.
And real quick, this last article I'm throwing in here just because Chris was getting really angry when I brought it up before the recording. Gamers are getting really upset that the Xbox Series X is going to be running extremely hot.
Yeah. It's not running hot. You know what's hot about it? The exhaust is hot. Do you know why the exhaust is hot? Because the cooling system is effectively removing heat from the semiconductor components inside the case. I'm going to stab a gamer with a knife in Minecraft. Non-actionable.
I was going to say, if anything, this is a console that actually its cooling solution is doing its job.
Yeah. As opposed to, the Xbox 360. I think Microsoft just really does not want a repeat of the 360 days. Because if you remember, the Xbox One was, 3 times the volume of the PS4? I think it was something really silly like that. Because they got to keep this thing cool or they're going to lose a lot of money and get another class action suit.
Actually, I really hate this quote in this article here. It says the Xbox Series X is hot, really hot. It doesn't make any noise, but damn, it's hot. It's emitting heat like crazy. Well, shut up.
What?
Do you want the
Joe's video? How do you pronounce that? Jeux?
That'll be Joe.
Oh, wait, that's French. Yeah, Joe Video's Ken Bogard. What kind of name is that? That guy's French. I'm going to look him up. I'm going to look him up and judge his appearance. Okay, search. Let's see. Is this our guy? JV. Yeah, that's probably him. Let's take a look. He is French. Oh my god! Look at this dork.
Yeah,
the guy's got one of those weird French hats. You know the ones. I'm trying to think the word. It's like a.
Oh, look at this.
It's like that painter hat.
On the podcast,
this, dorky scarf.
Bad opinions.
I don't know. I'm judging this guy. I don't like him.
Well, so I think that's all I want.
He's French. I'm not allowed to like him.
Judge this picture of him.
God, that guy didn't get stuffed in a locker enough.
Hey, he has a very similar facial structure in terms of anomalies as I do. So
but you're cute, and I'd kiss you.
So I think unless anybody has any more input about this, these last 3 articles that we have here, I do really want to talk about, but I don't want this to be too long. So let's do an extras today. And stay tuned for extras where we're going to be talking about
just quickly on the Xbox
Uh,
Series X. The only gripe I have with it, aside from the heat, is the fact that you can't rotate the Xbox logo when you go from vertical to horizontal.
That was a feature on the PS2. Yeah, no, wait. What's the other thing? Oh, and the naming schemes. I don't know who is naming all of the Xboxes, but they need to be catapulted into the sun.
Okay, so the only Xbox of current era that I thought the name was clever, though I hated it, was the Xbox One X because that was just the Xbox.
No, it's not good.
No, I thought it was fun.
Don't encourage them.
The Xbox already exists.
Yeah.
They just need to put the year in every single version number for anything. That would solve everything.
They're not going to use the year. They're going to use the version of Windows 10 that it's running. So like Xbox,
call it the Xbox COVID-19.
Well, why?
Well, sounds better than Xbox 2020.
Yeah, this is Xbox 2231.rs underscore pre-release dot 201002-1444.
.exe.
Yeah.
.msi.
Yeah, that's for system admins only.
Oh, wait,
it's also funny. The Xbox One or the Xbox Series X is smaller, but it still has the DVD drive.
You dumb idiot! I said a thing before you started talking.
No, you both talked at the same time.
No, that's just lag. That works fine on my system.
I finished first. Not my fault. You didn't finish.
Yeah, because I had to yell at you. Yeah, so speaking of MSI, there have been claims thrown around that MSI themselves are scalping like 3080s and 3090s on eBay, which is extremely funny if true. I don't think it's true. I think it's just gamers being idiots. But if it is true,
it's one employee at MSI. Gamers Nexus did like a live thing at like 3 a.m. talking about it. Yeah,
they figured it out.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Has Nvidia like sent a hitman after the guy? Or
probably. He's probably like in a river someplace.
Nice. I wish I could get killed by Nvidia,
dude. Nice.
All right. So
Jensen, if you're listening, just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah, Jensen's gonna be right over. He's gonna knock on your door and he's gonna ray trace your death.
Yeah.
So on that note, stay tuned for our extras recording. We're going to be talking about the gamer credit card with an LED, and we're going to talk about a truck.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about stuffing nerds in lockers after I get milk tab with my pizza Pringles.
So this is going to be fun. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 41. I'm
the host. I get to do the outro.
Wait, it's not episode 41. What is it, Chris?
It's episode 40 fun. Thanks for tuning in. I love all of you. We've been a wonderful audience tonight. Buy our merchandise.
What merchandise?
Yeah, we got merch.
Yeah, we got merch.